Episode 321. Are you joking? Dumbfounded by Brad's request, Haley remained motionless, and she stared at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. 10 minutes, she said. His only reply was, "Mm-hmm." Are you serious? She asked, thinking that Brad was kidding. She knew that he hadn't known how to joke several years earlier, but she thought that he must have learned since then.
I couldn't kiss you last night or this morning because of Sean, so I want to make up for it, he said.
She blushed and cleared her throat. The honesty and sincerity in his eyes told her that he wasn't joking. Isn't 1 minute enough? She asked, but he seemed dejected. He kept his expression blank, but his silence and the familiar look in his eyes told her that he wasn't happy. She realized that an unhappy and dejected Brad was still one of her greatest weaknesses. It was impossible for her to resist him when he had that look in his eyes. She tried to negotiate with him. 2 minutes, she said, but he remained speechless. Okay, 3 minutes, she offered. There was no response. 4 minutes?
There was only silence.
She thought, he still wants more. Isn't 4 minutes enough? She was surprised at how demanding he had become, and she thought that he was using a new strategy to lure her into his trap. It also occurred to her that he knew she couldn't resist him when he was dejected. Okay, 5 minutes. That's long enough, right? She said. But when he just stared at her and remained silent, she sighed. Why does it seem like his requests keep getting bolder and more shameless? What will I do when he starts asking for more? She wondered. After several seconds of silence, Brad finally spoke.
All right,
he said softly, but he sounded unhappy. Haley felt like she should have been happy that he had agreed, but instead, she felt helpless. His dejectedness reminded her of the innocent masked man she had met several years earlier. She couldn't ignore or resist his sad puppy eyes, so she gave in. I mean, we can kiss for 5 minutes now, and 5 more minutes later, she said. A beautiful smile spread across his face. His smiles always entranced her, and while she gazed at his mouth, he moved closer and kissed her. She pulled away quickly. Your men are still here, she said quietly, blushing. Brad had completely forgotten about them. He was about to order them to leave when he got an idea that made him forget about them again.
Can you sit in my lap?
He asked, as if he hadn't heard her. She was stunned. His shamelessness seemed to come naturally to him, and he no longer blushed or stammered. Can you ask them to leave first? She asked. He gestured to his bodyguards and they got out of the car. Haley sat in his lap and laced her fingers behind his neck. Are you joking? She asked. He blinked.
Joking?
He asked cluelessly. Her shoulders drooped. She knew that even though he had developed more emotional intelligence, he didn't realize or care about how his actions and words impacted other people.
I'm not joking. I'm serious,
he said in his usual firm and absolute tone. Okay, I was just wondering, she said.
Why?
He asked. Because you asked for 10-minute kisses. Our lips would be swollen after 10 minutes. So I thought you were joking, she replied.
Don't worry. I would never hurt your precious lips. Maybe I'll just kiss you every 10 minutes so that your lips don't hurt.
Episode 322, a few extra. Haley was at a loss for words. The upgraded, shameless version of Brad shocked her. But she knew she had to accept that he was no longer her innocent little monster.
Can I kiss you now?
He asked impatiently. His question shocked her. She wasn't used to him asking for permission.
Can I?
He repeated as he moved closer to her. She felt his warm breath on her skin, and she blushed
as she nodded. He flashed a quick smile and then his lips touched hers. As usual, his kiss was passionate but gentle. It lasted so long that Haley was gasping for breath when he pulled away from her. Their lips were still so close that they felt each other's breath when they spoke. "I think we should get out of the car now. We've been in here for a while, and we only have 2 hours," she said. Brad looked shocked. He seemed to have forgotten that they were short on time. Haley thought that he was going to let go of her, but his grip on her waist tightened. "That was only 3 minutes. We still have 2 minutes left," he said. "How do you know it was 3 minutes?" she asked in disbelief. He looked upset. "You don't believe me?" he asked. She bit her lip and said, "It's not that I don't believe you. It just felt much longer than 3 minutes." His expression brightened. "That's because you enjoyed it so much that time slowed down," he said. She was speechless. Isn't it the other way around? Doesn't time usually speed up when you're enjoying something so that you want more? She wondered. Brad's face once again moved close to hers. "One more, okay?" he asked. She was shocked again that he had asked instead of just kissing her, and she wondered if he was doing it intentionally. "Okay," he repeated. She sighed. She couldn't figure out exactly what he was doing, but if it was a trick, it was working. She imagined a puppy begging for more petting, and she couldn't say no. "Okay, just 2 minutes, okay?" she said, and she felt his warm lips on hers again. After Haley had changed Brad's hairstyle, he had been dramatically transformed. He had originally looked gorgeous and breathtakingly elegant, but cold. His new look was closer to that of a pop idol, especially with his tousled bangs covering his forehead. He was more stunning than ever. "What's wrong?" he asked, sensing that something was bothering her. "You're too cute now," she said. Then she got an idea. She rummaged through her bag and took out a pair of black sunglasses. She put them on him and nodded with satisfaction as she gave him a plain, black baseball cap. They stepped out of the car wearing matching black caps, black sunglasses, and plain gray t-shirts. They looked like they belonged on the pages of famous magazines. The market was crowded and covered by large, colorful umbrellas. Haley's grip on Brad's hand tightened as they walked. It was the first time they had been to such a place together. 5 years earlier, they had only dreamed about going on public outings. So as they roamed around together, their hearts fluttered. They wandered around, and Haley found herself asking the fruit vendors for discounts, like she had done years earlier. She didn't realize that Brad was gazing at her with wonder in his eyes. He couldn't understand why she was asking, and he thought that she might be trying to act like they were poor. "I don't give discounts, but I can throw in a few extra apples," a vendor said as she gave Haley a bag of fruit. "Thank you so much," Haley said. Brad took the bag and asked, "Why do you want a discount on fruit?" "I can buy this entire market if you want it." She almost choked, but then she remembered that he was completely unaware of what normal people did. She was about to explain, but he asked her another question. "Do you want people to think that we're really poor?" She was shocked. "No," she said. "It's just, I guess it's fun to negotiate." Brad froze, and he stared at her mouth. He had just seen the slightest hint of movement. The corners of her lips had lifted. Episode 323, Attracting Attention. Brad was awestruck. Even though what had flashed across Haley's face could hardly be considered a smile, he was delighted to see it. The corners of her lips had lifted for just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. It was a sign of change, and for him, it was huge. He was so happy that he froze and couldn't keep up with her. As she walked toward another stall, his grip on her hand had loosened while he was staring at her, and their hands parted. She stopped and looked back, but the crowd had separated them. Her heart raced. She knew that Brad wasn't used to markets. It was his first time visiting one, and he hadn't allowed his bodyguards to follow them. "Brad?" she called out in a panic. She stood on her tiptoes and looked around again. When she didn't see him, she went into soldier mode, and the panicked look in her eyes turned dangerous. Then a warm, familiar hand grabbed hers, washing away her fear. "I'm here," Brad said. She dragged him away from the crowd and stopped by a bench. "Didn't I tell you not to let go of my hand? What if you get lost?" she said. She looked like a parent scolding a child. He stared at her, puzzled. "Have you mistaken me for Sean? How could a grown man get lost?" he asked. She blinked. He did have a point. The Brad who hadn't known how to watch a movie, stir soup, chop potatoes, or peel apples was gone. The Brad standing in front of her wasn't that clueless anymore. "I was just worried," she said as she averted her gaze. He smiled. "Don't worry. I won't let go of you again," he said. She glanced at him. "Can I tie us together?" she asked. Brad fell silent. "Tie us together? Why?" he thought, but he nodded. Haley saw a stall that sold cloth and thread, and she dragged him to it. She bought a piece of red cloth and tied it to his wrist with a sturdy knot that she had learned in her military training. She then tied the other end to her own wrist. Brad smiled. He liked her idea, and he wanted that red cloth to bind them together permanently. "Are you satisfied now?" he asked, and she nodded. "Mm-hmm. Now I don't have to worry," she said. She started to lead him back to the fruit vendors, but he resisted. "It's been 10 minutes. I need to recharge," he said. She blushed. "But there are so many people here," she said. He smiled and pulled her toward the colorful fabric hanging over the nearest stall. As soon as they were hidden, he asked, "Is this private enough? Can I kiss you now?" "Mm-hmm," she replied. Their lips touched, and the colorful fabric swirled around them romantically. They strolled through the market. They were still hidden behind their glasses and caps, but they were starting to attract attention. The red cloth that tied them together raised eyebrows, and several older women expressed envy at how cute they looked. They chatted to each other as Brad and Haley passed by. "I've never been so painfully aware of how long I've been single." "Yeah, they look like they belong in a romance movie." "Do you see a camera crew?" "They seem real enough to me." "Yeah, and I'm jealous." Episode 324, Being Watched. Brad and Haley were having a wonderful time. They roamed the market, browsing and shopping like any other couple would do. He had avoided the market for years. He had purposely avoided every place that Haley had mentioned, so that he could experience them for the first time with her. He hated crowded places, but with her beside him, the noisy market became magical. He loved every minute that he spent strolling around with her. but he remembered to stop every 10 minutes to ask for a kiss. Haley started to think that even if the world were descending into chaos, he would still stop her every 10 minutes and ask for a kiss.
Brad, there's no privacy here. Can't we just do it in the car later? She asked.
He froze. This crowd is draining my energy, he said. She sighed. She could tell by the look in his eyes that he wouldn't give up on their kisses that easily. Before he could ask her again, she removed her cap and covered their faces with it. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him. He was surprised, but he kissed her back, ignoring the people who had turned to look at them. She pulled away after a minute, and as expected, Brad was unhappy. He didn't complain, though, since she had initiated the kiss. Two people were watching them, and they reacted differently. Amy was grinning and seemed to be enjoying the show, but Tyler seemed bored. Isn't this enough stalking? We know what they're doing. Brad will kiss her every 10 minutes until they're out of time. There's nothing else to see, Tyler said. Amy raised her eyebrows. What's wrong, Mr. Beauty? Are you jealous or something? Do you feel embarrassed about being single? She asked. Her tone was annoyingly mischievous, but he seemed to have developed a tolerance and was not easily provoked. I used to be like you. I lived with them 5 years ago, and I enjoyed watching them. I'm immune to their lovey-dovey antics now, he said with a yawn. The mature and shameless Brad wasn't as entertaining as the innocent and ignorant Brad had been. Let's go, he said, and turned away. Amy grabbed his arm. Hey, we're not done yet. If you try to leave, I'll kiss you, she said. He flicked her arm. He didn't believe her threat, but he sighed. If you want to stay, go ahead. I'll wait in the car, he said. He started to pull his arm away and was surprised when she voluntarily let go of him. He stepped away, but he didn't get very far. She grabbed his face and kissed him. The crowd in the market that day had two shamelessly kissing couples to watch. Tyler was surprised at how forceful the kiss was. She seemed to be trying to punish him. She was aggressive, but he was still in control of himself. He heard a small child asking what they were doing and was just about to push her away when she stopped kissing him. They stared at each other. She smiled, and he felt like a nerve in his forehead was popping. He sighed and walked away without a word. His fiancée was a constant headache. He couldn't believe that he had kissed her back, especially since they were in a crowded public place. He too had become as shameless as she was. She's a bad influence, he thought with a smile. He knew that he was falling for her, and the more time he spent with her, the further he would fall. He had walked just a few steps away when a loud cry stopped him. He turned and saw tears streaming down Amy's face. No, my husband is leaving me for another woman. Somebody, please stop him. Please, she cried as she pointed at him. Episode 325. Remember Your Promise. Tyler was dumbstruck. Amy kept crying. Her words echoed in his mind, driving him crazy. Husband, what the hell are you talking about? And who the hell is the other woman? Amy, you little... he thought. While he calmed himself down, the crowd turned on him. Older women started scolding him as if he were a child. They took turns yelling at him. Are you completely heartless? How could you leave your wife? Yeah, look at her. She's beautiful. How could you want another woman? Do you think you're so handsome that you deserve 2 women? You can't treat women like that. Being handsome doesn't give you any special privileges. Look at how hard she's crying. Do something. We're all old enough to be your grandmothers, so listen to us. Don't leave your wife. Stay with her and leave the other woman. Do you understand? Amy was stunned. She couldn't say anything because the woman's comments kept coming. Her tears stopped. She hadn't expected them to sympathize with her that much. Her tears stopped, and she grew anxious. She felt guilty, and she didn't know what to do. All she had wanted to do was stop Tyler from leaving, so they could keep watching Brad and Haley. This is a disaster, she thought. She knew that things had gone too far, and she felt scared. It was the first time that she had lost control of a situation. She looked at Tyler with panic in her eyes, and when she saw how calm he was, her heart skipped a beat. He just stood there and listened to the women, and he seemed to accept all the blame, which made her feel even worse. She realized that she never wanted anyone else to talk to Tyler like that, or falsely accuse him of something he hadn't done. She hoped that he would speak up and defend himself, but he remained silent. She finally said. He smiled devilishly at her, but when he saw the guilt in her eyes, he sighed. He realized that she had not been trying to get that kind of response from the crowd, and the realization surprised him. Knowing her mischievousness, he had thought at first that she had wanted to cause as much trouble for him as she usually did, so he had tried his hardest to stay calm. As he stared at her, he saw that he had misread her, and that she was trying to fix the problem that she had caused. Actually, she began. He ran back to her, hugged her, and whispered in her ear, "Are you trying to tell them that you made it all up?" "Yes, and He didn't let her finish. Instead, he turned to the crowd and said, "I'm sorry for the trouble. You're right. I'm staying with my wife." Amy was stunned. The women breathed sighs of relief and softened their tone. "Just make sure you keep your vows to her." "Yes, remember that you promised to love and cherish her." He smiled and said, "I remember. Thank you for your help." Then he turned to Amy and said, "Let's go." He picked her up and carried her away. She didn't resist. She had no retorts or insults ready, and she felt like the tables had turned. She could tell that he was biting his tongue, and she prepared herself for whatever he might say. She felt so bad that she didn't even think she would fight back. Episode 326, Amy's Guilt. Inside the car, Amy was silent, which was out of character. On this occasion, she knew she was in the wrong, and she deserved to be punished. In fact, she wanted to be punished, because she was afraid that otherwise, she would never be free of her guilt. Amy knew how it felt to be wrongly accused. When she had been a teenager, her family had often made false and painful accusations against her, and she had often crumbled under the weight of those accusations. She knew how painful words could be, and no matter how many years had passed, the scar of those memories had remained with her. As far as Amy was concerned, words could be used to harm or destroy someone's heart. What was worse was that nobody could take back words that had already been said. That was why the scene that had developed earlier had been so hard for her to bear. Tyler had been innocent, and he hadn't deserved to be falsely accused or to bear the brunt of such unreasonable abuse. Even if it hadn't been such a big deal to Tyler, Amy still felt hopelessly guilty. So, Amy waited patiently for her punishment. Tyler, on the other hand, was observing Amy and was puzzled. She looked dispirited and downhearted, with no sign of the mischievous and annoying woman she had been just a short while before. Seeing her like this, he couldn't even think about venting at her. How could he even consider punishing her when she already looked as though she was in pain? In the end, Tyler did nothing but pinch the skin between his eyebrows. He had decided a while ago not to let her off lightly when she caused trouble in an attempt to curb her troublesome behavior. He had decided the best way to control her would be to teach her a lesson when she misbehaved. But seeing her now, he didn't believe he could take any action when she already looked like she had received the worst punishment. Had this been her strategy all along, so she would get away with it unscathed? He wondered. As he thought about it, Tyler was unsure. He didn't reject the possibility that it was all an act. But for some reason, he had a feeling that she wasn't faking it this time. Tyler had no choice but to confront her. "You," he began, but he seemed to startle her, and she jolted at the sound of his voice. "What's wrong with this woman? Is she scared?" he wondered. Puzzled by her reaction, he looked at her and called her name. "Amy, look at me," he said, and Amy turned around to face him. "Yes," she replied, and the words she said next surprised and confused him even more. "You can punish me now. I deserve it. I'll accept whatever punishment you think is appropriate," she said firmly, her eyes determined. But he didn't know what to think. He had expected her to flirt with him or answer him back the moment he started talking to her. What exactly is this? What's going on? He wondered. What? Do you want to be punished? Are you a sadist as well? Tyler asked in disbelief. But Amy maintained her despondency. I know I went too far this time. I deserve to be punished. Don't worry, I won't complain and fight back, she said firmly as she held his hand and pulled it close to her face. Whatever punishment you decide, it's fine with me, she continued. But when he heard that, Tyler's face turned dark, a reaction Amy hadn't expected. She was about to speak again when suddenly Tyler pinned her down in one move. His face was still dark, and he looked angry. You want me to hit you? He asked in a voice that sent a chill down Amy's spine. It seems like his hidden dark side of him is showing through again, she thought. She couldn't utter a word, but Tyler saw the faint glimmer of fear in her eyes, and he snapped. He cursed under his breath and quickly switched back to his usual self. Do you really believe I would hit you? He asked again, incredulously, his voice back to normal. Amy sensed this change in him and finally found her voice. But isn't that the only way left to punish someone guilty of a serious wrongdoing? She asked. And Tyler narrowed his eyes. What? The only way left? Can't I use the methods you've been using to punish me all this time? You use flirting and intimacy to get back at me, he said with a devilish smile. But Amy just frowned in confusion. But if I did that, would it even be considered punishment? Wouldn't that be a reward instead? She replied with honesty. And suddenly, Tyler was annoyed again. So, is she saying that she would be happy with that punishment? But if that were the case, what would be the incentive to stop her from behaving badly? What would be the motivation for her to keep out of mischief if she enjoyed the punishment? He wondered. His head was beginning to hurt. Then why are you telling me to slap you instead of choosing intimacy as your punishment? He asked once more. He really couldn't understand her. Aside from her uncharacteristic demeanor, the fact that she didn't ask for her usual intimate punishment was a surprise. If she's not acting, what is the reason behind her behavior? He wondered. Amy remained silent. Speak to me, he said. He wanted her to explain why she was acting in this manner. After staring at him for a while, she finally opened her mouth. I deserve to be punished seriously this time. What happened would never be resolved by just saying sorry, she replied, looking guilty and apologetic. This made him regard her differently than usual. She was demonstrating a side of her that Tyler had never seen before, and he found it strange. What makes you think that saying sorry isn't enough for me? He asked quietly with a serious look on his face. Even if I say sorry, what I said back there can never be taken back. And I know just saying sorry is never enough. She answered, her eyes still guilty as ever. He didn't like to see her like this. He would rather her naughty and mischievous behavior rather than this unfamiliar conduct. But when he heard what she said, Tyler finally understood why she was acting this way. He had once witnessed Amy being attacked by her own father and stepmother years ago. They had wrongfully accused her of slandering her stepsister, screaming all manner of curses and hateful words at her. He had known all along that Amy's battle had always been different from his own. Her enemies had attacked her with painful words that could destroy her mental well-being. Thankfully, she seemed to have grown tolerant of them and no longer allowed herself to be affected by them. Do you think I mind what those strangers said? Tyler once again asked with a smirk on his face, and Amy's eyes widened in surprise. He really didn't mind at all, she thought. He then bent forward and moved his face closer to her ear. Do you honestly think I was hurt by their words? Do you really think I'm that weak? He continued. Amy immediately retorted, It's not like that. It's just that I know you have such a loving family and are so well regarded. Nobody would have ever dared to insult you or accuse you or call you any names. And more importantly, you don't deserve to be treated like that. I feel guilty that you received that treatment from strangers because of me, she explained quickly. By the time she had finished her long speech, Tyler's mouth was hanging open, and his eyes were wide in surprise. He felt oddly pleased. Her speaking like this meant that she cared more about him than he realized, and his lips formed a small smile. Okay, I get it. Since you're desperately asking for it, then you must accept your punishment, he said as he lifted her chin. He knew only too well that her stubborn nature wouldn't prevent her from feeling guilty if he didn't punish her the way she thought she deserved. So he had no choice but to surrender and give her what she wanted. But he couldn't miss this opportunity to teach her a lesson. Okay, I will accept your apology if you agree to my demands, he said. Of course, I will agree to whatever you ask, Amy replied. Then listen, this is your punishment. You will be my servant until Haley is better, he said. Servant? What kind of... She began. Hush! I'm not done yet. You asked for a serious punishment, so listen carefully, my dear fiancé. Okay, she said. Until then, you're not allowed to flirt with me, said Tyler. Amy just looked at him. You're also not allowed to talk dirty and behave improperly with me or anyone else, he continued. What? And lastly, you're not allowed to touch me when we're alone, he said. What? Not even touch? She asked. Yes, so you have to behave, or else I will never forgive you, and you will be guilty for the rest of your life. Are you serious? Amy exclaimed. Episode 327,
Stop terrifying Amy. After fetching Sean from school, Brad had dropped Haley and her son at the military base. Haley had wanted them to meet her mother and uncle, but Brad had already mentioned beforehand that he had an urgent matter he had needed to attend to, so she hadn't pressed him. Once Brad had left his family at the base, he had headed toward the Clark International Corporation headquarters in the city. As soon as he had entered the palatial building, Brad's soft expression vanished, and he adopted a cold and distant demeanor, giving the impression that he was unapproachable and inaccessible. Here, he reigned as king, and everyone around feared him. Brad attended a meeting and settled the urgent matter quickly and efficiently. A company called Finch Investments had threatened to withdraw their funding in one of Clark International Corporation's billion-dollar projects, but their plan had been defeated and dealt with swiftly by Brad. He had used legal and other means to remind them once again who the boss was, and by the time he had left the conference room, everyone present in the meeting knew who was in charge. You are way too ruthless sometimes. Do you need to crush them so mercilessly? Must you always be this cruel? Tyler asked as they headed toward Brad's office.
Mr. Clark, they deserve it. Finch Investments should really get rid of their CEO. He's an idiot. His terrible decision-making will be their downfall. He didn't realize what he was up against until now,
he said. You got it in one go, Tyler said to him and laughed. But he was actually laughing because he knew the real reason behind Brad's ruthless behavior today. He knew that Brad would have rather spent time with Haley, and the fact that he had to come to the office to deal with this matter was irritating him to the extreme. It was apparent by his terrible mood. When they reached Brad's top floor office, Tyler made himself at home on a luxurious couch. He was startled when Brad spoke.
Tyler, I'm sure you haven't forgotten, but you'll have to take over as the new CEO of the Clark International Corporation very soon,
he said, and Tyler rested his head on the back of the couch.
Don't make the old man wait too long,
he continued, and Tyler sighed before he responded. Yes, I know, he said weakly. Suddenly, he received a message. Did you explain the plan to Brad the Great? As soon as he read Amy's message, he immediately turned to Brad. Brad, do you want to hear Amy's plan? He asked. Brad was in the middle of signing some papers, but he looked up.
Get her in here,
he ordered. What? Is that really necessary? You know Amy is terrified of you, Tyler reasoned.
Bring her here. I'll be her brother-in-law soon. She can't be afraid of me forever,
Brad said.
Anyway, you should be helping her overcome her fear,
he said. Why? It was you who scared her so much. You call her your future sister-in-law, and yet you actually told her you would feed her to crocodiles. And then you locked her in a dark room while I was away. It's no wonder she's terrified of you, Tyler argued. Brad lifted his head the instant Tyler raised his voice. He quickly realized that Brad was giving him an icy glare because he raised his voice defending Amy. He slowly sunk down into the couch again and avoided Brad's eyes.
I told you before that she needed to be told that time, to realize her mistake. You're far too tolerant with her, said Brad. But you don't need to scare her that much, complained Tyler. It's not my intention, replied Brad. If it was Haley who had behaved like that, would you have punished her like that? Tyler asked. Of course not. Brad's answer somehow triggered something in Tyler, and he rose from the couch, stormed toward Brad, and slammed his hands on Brad's huge wooden desk. "You see, you have double standards, Brad. You should have treated Amy with kindness," Tyler said. "Why should I? She's not my wife." Brad shrugged. "What?" Tyler said in disbelief. He ran his fingers through his hair, lost for words. For the first time, he found Brad completely unreasonable. "That was your fault for not keeping an eye on her, Tyler. If you had been around that time, I wouldn't have needed to lock her up to make her behave. Didn't you choose a mission over her?" Brad asked. When these words left Brad's mouth, Tyler couldn't speak anymore. The words felt like a knife slicing through him, and he could only stand there, clenching his fists in silence. Brad stared at him. He would rather have Tyler continue to argue with him, but he watched as he reverted to his normal self, and as if nothing had happened, he slipped his hands into his pockets and turned to face his brother. "Okay, I get it. I'll go get her," said Tyler in a normal voice and with a calm expression before he casually left the room. As soon as he left, Brad leaned back in his seat. He knew what was wrong with Tyler, and he was worried about him. But he considered Tyler storming out on him for the first time because of someone else was a good thing. Brad could see a new beginning for his friend and brother. Episode 328. Tyler's Confusion. Tyler and Amy reached the office door, and Tyler heard a long and deep sigh as he prepared to push the door open. He turned around and looked behind him to see that the sigh had come from Amy, who was gathering her wit and composure. His eyebrow knit into a frown. "Are you still frightened of him because you're still angry with him?" Tyler asked. His tone was calm, but there was a hint of impatience in his eyes. "I'm not really angry with him. I don't resent him. Considering how important your brother is, his actions are understandable." Amy paused and scratched her cheek with her forefinger. She continued, "And anyway, I deserved it. So don't worry. I won't misbehave in front of Brad the Great again. Even if he is terrifying, I'm not scared of him anymore. I'm just afraid I might end up offending him." After hearing her words, Tyler seemed to get angry, and his eyes blazed. Amy looked at him with confusion and uncertainty. "You think he will feed you to the crocodiles if you offend him?" he asked. Tyler's voice and eyes were giving contradictory signals, and Amy couldn't quite guess what was going on inside his beautiful head. She looked at him for a little while as she tried to work him out. It had never been easy to understand him, but she was also careful to remember their deal, her punishment. "I can't be careless now. I need to be alert and control myself, or I might make a slip of the tongue and say something inappropriate or flirtatious," she thought. "Not really. I'm just afraid Brad the Great won't allow me to stay close to my Haley, little Sean, and Owen. I'd be heartbroken if he did that. They are my whole life, my true family. I can't live without them," she explained, speaking simply and efficiently to avoid any comments she might regret. But Tyler seemed to be more irritated by her response, and she could no longer hide her curiosity. "What? Why does he look so angry? Is he really mad? For real? Or am I imagining this? But why is he behaving like this?" she thought. She couldn't understand why this man, who was always so cool, calm, and collected, was behaving like this. She had no idea what had made him so angry. Tyler opened his mouth and glared at her as though she had just said something he disapproved of. "This woman. My Haley, my Sean, my Owen. You can't live without them. Is this woman serious? Then how about me?"
Tyler was ranting to himself when he stopped suddenly, stunned. He was completely surprised as soon as he realized what he was thinking. Why the hell do I feel like I'm acting like a teenager throwing tantrums? Damn it, what's going on with me? He thought. Tyler realized why he was thinking like this and took a deep breath as he rubbed the back of his neck. Hey, are you mad at me? Amy finally asked. Tyler felt his ears getting hot, but in the next moment, he composed himself and quickly reverted to his usual self, leaving no trace of the emotions he was feeling just a second ago. Who's mad? No, I'm not mad at you, he said casually, and Amy frowned. She blinked a few times because it seemed like the fury she had seen a second ago had been an illusion, but she couldn't be sure. Look, don't lie to me, she said, but Tyler simply raised an eyebrow as if to tell her that she was imagining things. This gesture somehow triggered a response. Amy had been trying so hard to hold back, but now she wanted to know. You definitely didn't look happy just then, you know, she blurted out, and all of a sudden, her hands reached for his collar and pulled him toward her. I saw it with my own 2 eyes, she said. When she saw the surprise on his face, she slowly let go of his collar. Well, I didn't touch you, okay? I just touched your collar, that's all, she said. Don't mistake that as flirting. Amy slowly forced a smile before retreating quietly. Tyler could only look at her in disbelief. This woman actually grabbed my collar. Why do I feel like she's starting to resort to violence now that she can't flirt? Episode 329. Brad rejects Amy's plan. 2 years ago, on the night her good-for-nothing father had callously announced to everyone that he was disowning her. That was because her grandfather had been on his sickbed again. Back then, Amy was devastated. She had always believed that she would no longer care if her father denied her existence as his child to the world. But in the end, she still felt hurt. That night, she had wandered the streets aimlessly until she had found herself standing in front of the Clark mansion, where 15-year-old Owen had found her. Owen had told her that Tyler wasn't inside, but Amy had immediately denied that she had been looking for him. Amy had then asked Owen to come out with her for a while, and Owen, after he had noticed how sad she looked, had agreed. But just as they had been about to leave, Brad's car had arrived. Owen had immediately gone to him and told Brad, who was now his guardian, that he would be keeping Amy company on her walk. Although Brad was overprotective of Owen, he had agreed after he had told Amy to be sure to bring Owen back safely before 10 o'clock. That night, Amy had been angry after another encounter with her stepsister, who had called her and rubbed it in her face that her father was disowning her. That's how Amy had ended up going to a bar. Owen had been worried about her, so he had followed her inside. In the end, she had gotten drunk, and a few hours later, Owen had eventually persuaded her to leave and return home. Amy had relented straight away as she had never been able to resist Owen. But outside the bar, a drunken man had approached them and suddenly grabbed Amy, and Owen had felt that he had no choice but to fight him off. The shock of being attacked had sobered Amy up, and she had hurriedly pulled Owen away from the drunken man who had been on the ground by then. They had returned to the mansion and had expected Brad to be angry because it was way past Owen's curfew. But just as they had entered the house, Owen had suddenly collapsed, gasping for air. Owen suffered from asthma, but it had been years since he had last had an episode. That night, he had been treated by the Clark family doctor. The doctor had said that Owen had inhaled too much cigarette smoke, which triggered his asthma attack. Brad had also discovered what else had happened that night, and he had been furious. Amy, who had still been under the influence of alcohol, had wanted to leave the mansion out of guilt, even though it was already past midnight. One of the servants had been having difficulty trying to stop Amy from leaving, so Brad had scolded her and threatened to feed her to crocodiles before ordering the servant to lock her up in a dark room to reflect on her behavior. Brad had been very angry, but he had known that Amy was upset that night. He had learned about the attack and knew she was still drunk. He was aware that he hadn't needed to be so extreme. But his real reason for locking her up had not been to punish Amy, but to provoke Tyler. Brad had wanted to stir something within Tyler, to anger him and get a reaction from him. He would never have believed that a reaction would not surface until 2 years later. Had Tyler really suppressed any reaction about this for 2 years? Was he really that inhuman? Brad had thought in the office that day. Amy was standing stiffly beside Tyler in front of Brad, who was sitting behind his desk. She was so close to Tyler that her shoulder brushed against his arm. "Tell me what your plan is," Brad said, breaking the silence. Amy automatically held onto Tyler's arm as she began to speak. "I believe we have to find a trigger that will cause Haley's emotions to spill out. You and Sean have already tried many different things to make her smile, and nothing has worked. Why don't we try another approach?" she explained. Her gaze was firmly fixed on Brad as she spoke, and she felt as if she were being interrogated by a terrifying commander general. She was afraid to avert her gaze even for a moment. "Approach? What kind of approach?" Brad asked. "How about we try making her jealous?" Amy suggested. "Explain how you think that would work," Brad instructed. "I think if Haley feels jealous enough, her emotions might burst out of control. When that happens, she might be able to cry," Amy said. "So, what do you want me to do?" Brad asked. "I will find a woman and arrange for Haley to see you with that woman," Amy explained. "No!" Brad shouted. His immediate and firm rejection jolted Amy, and like a startled child, she suddenly hid behind Tyler, her arms wrapped around his waist. Just then, someone entered the room, but because Amy's face was pressed against Tyler's back, she didn't see who it was. "Why are you hiding?" Tyler said quietly, speaking for the first time. "Because Brad the Great is angry again," she whispered, looking as cautious as ever as her grip on Tyler's waist tightened. "He's not angry. He's simply rejecting your suggestion. And let go of me. There's someone here," he said. But Amy just squeezed Tyler's waist more tightly, causing him to turn around and stare at her with wide eyes. "What are you?" he began. "What? You said I'm not allowed to touch you when we are alone. We aren't alone, so I can touch you whenever I want. Stop complaining and don't be so conservative," she said. Tyler was speechless. He frowned, pinched the skin between his eyebrows, and sighed. "This woman, I purposely let her touch me when someone else is around because she's frightened, and she still gets the better of me," he thought. While Amy was still trying to squeeze Tyler's waist harder, she finally noticed the presence of someone else inside the room, and she peeked from behind him to see who it was. Her eyes narrowed when she saw an attractive woman, elegantly dressed, holding a stack of documents. Brad never once raised his head to look at the woman, but in that instant, Amy became extremely suspicious of how the woman was dressed and was especially wary of the way she looked at her friend's husband. "Who is that woman?" she whispered to Tyler. The hostility in her voice was evident, and Tyler noticed this immediately. Amy asked Tyler again. Tyler looked at Amy and saw the clear hostility in her eyes. "You don't need to be wary of her. She's just an assistant," Tyler said. Nevertheless, Amy's eyes remained focused on the woman, and her hostility didn't waver. "Just an assistant? I thought all your brother's assistants were men," she argued, causing Tyler to crease his brows as he questioned her. "What made you think that?" he asked. "Well, all the assistants that have visited the mansion have all been men. I haven't seen a female assistant turn up at the house before, and I never thought that Brad the Great would want to talk to any other woman other than Mahaley." "What? Does Brad look like he's talking to her? She's simply reporting. Can't you hear his one-word answers?" Tyler replied. "But," Amy began, "you're supposed to be thinking about the next plan. Your initial proposal has been rejected, so stop thinking about things that don't matter. That guy would never fall for another woman, even if the earth were going to explode. You understand that, don't you?" he asked. "Okay," said Amy. She was forced to shut up when Tyler reminded her that her first plan had been rejected outright. So she shook her head and was about to start to formulate her next plan when she saw the woman walk closer to Brad. She walked around the desk and stood beside him as she put a document on the desk in front of him. She pointed to something on the document, and Amy's eyes narrowed so much she could barely see anything. But she did not like what she could see. The next moment, she wrapped her arm around Tyler's shoulder and pulled him toward her. "Tell me, Mr. Beauty, does she have any other connection to Brad, other than being his assistant?" Amy asked. This time, her voice took on a serious tone, as if she were requesting some life or death information. Amy appeared determined, and Tyler knew how stubborn she could be and that she would not be satisfied until he had answered all her questions. "She's an acquaintance of our foster parents. We've known her since we were teenagers." As he explained, Amy's grip on him tightened. Tyler was once again confused by her reaction, as she looked even less happy after hearing this. "What?" But before Tyler could finish his question, Amy suddenly pulled him toward her again. They were so close that his cheek was brushing against her head. "Listen to me, Mr. Beauty. Take it from me. That woman is dangerous," she said in a tone as if she were warning of impending disaster. And Tyler sighed deeply. "Do you think any woman other than Haley could seduce that man right there?" he asked, pointing at Brad behind the desk. Amy was silent for a while as she looked at her friend's husband, sitting impassively, seemingly unbothered by the close proximity of the woman, even though she was indeed extremely attractive. "He's still devoid of all human emotion when he's away from his wife and son," she thought. Somehow, his indifference, even in this situation, and the fact that he had waited for Haley for 5 years, without so much as a glance toward another woman, were already solid proof that what Tyler said made sense. However, Amy just didn't like a single thing about this woman. The feeling she got from her was strong enough to make her very uneasy. Amy then looked at Tyler with the same suspicious gaze as she whispered, "Even if what you're saying is true, I still think she's dangerous," Amy said, and Tyler was about to flick her forehead, but stopped. "What makes you even think that she's dangerous?" he asked. "A woman's instinct. I can just feel it," she said. Amy's words and the distrust and hostility he saw in her eyes rendered Tyler speechless. He realized Amy was serious. In all this time, he had never heard Amy judge anyone. He knew she wasn't the type to spout baseless nonsense or empty accusations. Even though Tyler didn't think that the woman Amy had called dangerous could ever cause trouble, he still chose to consider Amy's judgment. Okay, do you want me to tell Brad that she's dangerous or something? He asked. But to his surprise, Amy shook her head firmly. She narrowed her eyes and looked at the woman as if she were already thinking ahead to something else. There's no need. My beautiful partner, forget about the plan. We have another mission to accomplish, Amy said with a mischievous, evil smile, causing Tyler to raise an eyebrow as he looked at her. Amy knew that Brad wasn't the problem. She was sure that the man hadn't noticed a thing, or if he did, he wouldn't realize what the signals meant, so he would just ignore them. Even now, she could see that Brad wasn't aware of the woman's presence. However, to someone like Amy, who had experienced the pain of her family being wrecked by another woman, she was wary. Besides, there was absolutely nothing wrong with taking precautions. What? Another mission? Tyler asked curiously, and Amy just winked at him. First, I need to speak to my dear Haley, she said. Amy, don't stir up unnecessary trouble. I know. Stop being such a worrywart, my beauty. It's not good for your skin, she said. What? Who the hell is being a worrywart here? Tyler asked. Oh well, don't blame me. Maybe I got infected by your illness by sleeping with you last night, Amy said. Tyler was speechless and shocked by Amy's words. What the hell are you talking about? What illness? He asked, absolutely clueless. Overprotective relationship bodyguard syndrome, she said, and she chuckled. Episode 331, Return of the Star. After finally meeting her grandson, Michelle felt like she was floating in the clouds. She soon discovered that this boy was a genius and very polite. He had the manners of a little gentleman, and being around him was like standing in a ray of warm sunshine. She just wanted to wrap her arms around Sean and never let him go. Her old and weary heart was soothed just by looking at him and hearing his soft voice. She genuinely felt that meeting her grandson again was one of the happiest days of her life. Mommy, are you going to train again today? Sean asked Haley after talking with his grandmother. His round and chubby face had excitement written all over it. Noticing the sudden glimmer of anticipation in his eyes, Haley bent down and caressed his face. Do you want to see Mommy train? She asked. Would that make you happy? His eyes sparkled. Yes, Mommy, he replied with excitement. I want to see you in your cool uniform. Michelle watched the mother and son talking happily. Oh my, Sean seems to admire his mother being a soldier. Why don't you show him your skills, darling? Your friends in the shooting range have been waiting for you for over a year now, Michelle said. Sean nodded slowly like a wise old man. He thought it was a wonderful suggestion. But Haley hesitated. But as soon as Sean looked up at her with his irresistibly cute eyes, she just couldn't say no. Mommy, let's go, he shouted excitedly. Haley was planning to change out of her laboratory clothes, but she nodded her head anyway. It was impossible for her to reject her son's request. Haley then turned to her mother. Hey, Mom, I have something important to tell you when I'm finished, she said. Okay, darling. Just come find me at the lab later, Michelle replied. After Sean kissed his grandmother goodbye, he hastily followed his mother. Everyone at the range was extremely excited to hear about Haley's return. The shooting queen is back! What? She's coming? Really? I've been waiting a long time for this. I can finally show her how much I've improved since she's been gone, This is so exciting. I can't wait to compete with her again.
This time, I'll definitely beat her.
You sure talk a big game. Did you forget that she just came back from a year-long mission? Don't you think she's improved?
Maybe, but she's a medic, not a sniper.
Such a waste of talent.
Don't say that, idiot. An angel like her shouldn't be out there heartlessly killing people. Her God-given skills are better put to work as a medic. I know, I'm just complaining. I wish I had her marksmanship skills. It's not right. She's the full package. She's beautiful, smart, and a great medic. How can she be such a good shot as well? So unfair.
The people in the shooting range continued talking as Haley and Sean arrived. She was holding her son's hand as she walked up to the group. As usual, everyone's head seemed to turn automatically toward her. She wasn't wearing anything special or fancy. She wore no jewelry, makeup, or fashionable clothes. She was wearing a conventional army uniform, but she looked so stunning that she could be the cover model for an army fashion magazine. Her green t-shirt and camouflage pants hugged every curve of her slim, fit body. She was such a beautiful sight that everyone she passed by simply fell into a daze. She was the type of soldier who didn't just take men down with her fighting skills, but also with her undeniably gorgeous appearance. They were all thinking the same thing. If someone like her was their enemy on the battlefield, they might die of a broken heart before a bullet. With Haley, looks really could kill. Everyone who had already seen how terrifyingly skilled and intelligent she was jealous. Because of her skills, every soldier who knew her acknowledged and respected her. It wasn't just because she was related to the commander. If there was one thing that Haley was missing, it was a friendly attitude. Nobody in the camp had ever seen her smile. It was her only flaw. But for a soldier, it wasn't incredibly significant. Sergeant, welcome back. We've really missed you. Wells, a good-looking young man, was the first to approach her. He was a new recruit that Haley had trained with 3 years ago. He was talented and one of only 2 people at the range who was a better shot than she was. However, he knew that Haley was a better soldier overall. For her, shooting was just a hobby, and she only trained in her spare time. It's been a long time, she said. Wells' gaze fell to the boy standing beside her. Is this adorable child your relative? He asked. But before Haley could reply, Sean spoke. I'm not merely a relative. I'm her son, Sean said proudly, and everyone's eyes widened. They all looked at Haley with surprise. Yes, this is my child, she confirmed. Everyone was so shocked to hear she was a mom that the atmosphere in the entire range went noticeably quiet. Ignoring their reaction, Haley brought Sean to a safe area as she prepared herself. Everyone was still looking at her in awe until someone finally broke the silence. What? Our goddess has a son? That means she's already taken. Obviously, you idiot. What the hell? Here I thought she was like an angel, unattainable to mere mortal men. What kind of man could have managed to win over someone as perfect as her? Oh no, my dream girl is gone. My life is over. Episode 332, Celebrity Shootout. Wells, stay with my son, Haley said with a firm tone. The young man nodded his head obediently. When Haley looked down at her son, the expression on her face softened drastically. Sean, I can't bring you any closer than this, because it is a bit dangerous. So you have to watch me from here, okay? She explained everything carefully to her son, and he smiled. I won't be going anywhere. I'll stay here and watch Mommy, Sean replied adorably. Don't worry, ma'am. I will watch your son like a hawk, Wells said. After rubbing Sean's soft, black hair, Haley then took her rifle and went to the firing range. After she walked away, the number of soldiers in the area drastically increased. No one wanted to miss the chance to see Haley shoot. She was like a celebrity. Haley started shooting at her target. Her shots were so precise that even though she fired 10 rounds, there was only one hole in the target. Many of the onlookers had been feeling a bit downhearted due to the shocking news that Haley was a married woman. But as soon as they saw the exhibition of her skills, they were both amazed and curious. Who was it who said she hadn't improved this year? Come out and eat your words. It looks like she's even better than before. You're right. Maybe she didn't work as a medic during her last mission. It definitely looks like she's improved a lot since the last time she was here. It looks like she's leveled up again. What are you going to do now, Wells? You might as well give up and save yourself the shame of being beaten. Yeah, Wells, do you still think you can shoot better than her? She's really good. I'm getting goosebumps just watching her. Wells, who was standing diligently beside Sean, couldn't take his eyes off Haley. Even though he was supposed to be watching the little boy, his eyes blazed with excitement as he stared at her. Sean's eyes were also filled with both wonder and pride. While everyone's attention was on Haley and her expert marksmanship skills, two people quietly arrived at the range. When they saw a crowd had formed, they had to go over and see what was going on. That's Haley, isn't it? Amy asked as she stared at her friend in disbelief. That's her, all right, Tyler replied. Didn't you say she was a medic? Amy said with wonder in her eyes. She couldn't believe that the amazing sharpshooter she was watching was really her delicate angel, Haley. I'm sure she was a medic, Tyler replied, but looking at her right now, I think she might also be a sniper. Although his expression was calm, his face was also filled with amazement. Nah, she wasn't our sniper, a man replied. He had brought Amy and Tyler into the shooting range. When Tyler realized he was a member of the Thunder Squad, he began to ask him questions. She's not? Tyler asked. Since the man knew exactly who Tyler was, he didn't bother to hide anything from him. He also knew that Haley was no longer part of their team. She was our medic, but she was also our team's spotter. Originally, she wasn't qualified to join our team because she lacked the physical strength, but her endurance is amazing. On our last mission, we really needed someone with her skills, so we didn't have a choice but to bring her along. Even if our team was slowed down because of her pace, her being with us was a huge advantage for our success. She was our medic, but midway through the mission, her role changed to become our spotter, which the captain had planned all along. She was exceptionally good at it, and the job didn't really require brute strength. I think that has helped improve her marksmanship skills. The man spoke with admiration as he explained everything to Tyler, who now understood how Haley had survived as a part of a Special Forces unit despite her small frame. Amy, who was also listening carefully to the man's explanation, went pale with shock. She had already been bewildered when she had found out that Haley was a soldier. She was even more dumbstruck when she found out that not only was she a part of a Special Forces unit, but also an amazing shooter and spotter. Amy almost felt like fainting. However, as she watched her best friend shooting nonstop with deadly accuracy, her eyes slowly started to sparkle. The disbelief that she had been feeling a moment ago turned into extreme admiration. Tyler couldn't blame Amy for being surprised. Even he was shocked at this new revelation. He didn't know that Haley was actually more than a skilled shooter. Her marksmanship was so superb, it was hard for him to believe. Her outward appearance seemed soft, quiet, and indifferent. But within her lay a warrior. Tyler smiled to himself as he thought that Brad had not only found himself a gorgeous wife, but he had also gained a very proficient bodyguard. He did not envy anyone who would ever try to mess with this fierce couple. Starstruck. A loud bang echoed in the shooting range as Haley finished her majestic and flawless sharpshooting exhibition. She stood in place for a few more seconds without moving. The domineering yet calm aura that had enveloped her entire being was slowly being extinguished. It was as if she was shedding an immortal garment that had enveloped her entire being and was returning to her mortal self again. Everyone was still watching silently, completely captivated and starstruck. All the men that were watching her, except for Tyler and Sean, felt like they were about to fall on their knees and worship her. Even Wells was dumbstruck. He had thought that he was getting close to matching Haley's skills as a soldier, but now he realized how wrong he was. Sean was clenching his fists with excitement. His beautiful eyes lit up as he looked at his mother like he was seeing a real superhero. He couldn't have been prouder of her. She was the champion of his life. When Haley finally put down her rifle, she turned to where she had left her son and saw him already running toward her. He was the very first person to make a move. Everyone else was still in a daze. Haley bent down because Sean was already spreading his arms out wide, even though he still had a bit of ground to cover to get to her. Soon enough, he collided with her and hugged her as tightly as ever. "Mommy, you're so amazing. You're so cool and awesome and great," he exclaimed while his eyes sparkled with admiration. "Thank you, sweetie," Haley replied as she hugged him back tightly. "Mommy, I want you to teach me. Can I have a gun like yours? I want to become as good as you." Haley's eyes widened when she heard his request. He was only 5 years old, far too young to be allowed to hold a gun. She was about to explain to Sean why he couldn't have his own gun when she heard a loud shriek. It sounded like a fan calling out to their most cherished celebrity. Haley and Sean both turned their heads in the direction of the sound. When they saw who had called out, they both stood there blinking. "Amy, why is she shrieking?" wondered Haley. "Auntie, why is she shrieking?" wondered Sean. The two simultaneously thought the same thing as Amy started running toward them. Tyler followed slowly behind her. When Amy reached them, Haley and Sean expected her to jump on them, but instead, she simply looked at Haley like she was some sort of legendary superhero. "Amy, why are you here?" Haley asked as she stood up. Amy suddenly embraced her. "Oh my gosh, you are real. I think I've fallen in love with you," Amy said loudly. Tyler stumbled as soon as he heard his fiancée blatantly saying she was in love with someone else. He quickly regained his balance and stood upright as he looked at Amy, clinging like a leech to the shocked Haley. Tyler and Sean both looked at each other with curious expressions. Sean was starting to develop a cold demeanor as he watched his aunt suddenly monopolizing his mother and not letting her go. "Amy, what is wrong with you?" Haley asked with confusion. She knew that Amy was always sweet to her, but the way she was clinging to her was a bit confusing. It was as if Amy was drunk or just out of her mind. "Amy, are you okay?" she asked again, and Amy finally replied, "You're so cool. I think you're the coolest person in the world. Marry me." she said with a shriek. Everyone went completely quiet. Time went by and the silence continued until Haley moved. She sniffed at Amy to see if she smelled of alcohol. Then she grabbed her shoulders and pushed her slightly. Tyler, who was now looking quite unhappy and embarrassed, grabbed Amy's arm and pulled her away from Haley. He couldn't just stand there and let his fiancée shamelessly confess her love to someone else. Amy was startled by his sudden movement. "Hey, let go of me," she said, turning to Tyler. "Don't interrupt." She was obviously displeased that Tyler had pulled her away. She was about to jump on Haley again when Tyler quickly wrapped his strong arm around her neck. Amy was suddenly stuck with her back pinned against his broad chest. "Hey, what's wrong with you? I said let go," Amy pleaded as she squirmed in his arms. "I still want to speak with my friend, the superhero." She kept complaining, but Tyler's grip tightened even more. The man moved his face next to her ear, and when Amy heard him speak, a sudden chill ran down her entire body. "Behave yourself, or else," he said in a deep, quiet voice. Even though he sounded calm, his tone was so cold that it terrified her deep into her bones. Amy could tell that Tyler's inner beast had reappeared again. When Amy stopped moving, Tyler's dark and cold aura disappeared. It had only been there for a fleeting moment, as though it was just in Amy's imagination. "Stop messing around. Can't you see Sean isn't happy?" Tyler said, back to his normal tone. Amy finally calmed down. She turned to Tyler and pinched his cheeks with both hands. "How dare you scare me like that?" she said. "You're the one who's scaring us," he said. "Pull yourself together and stop acting like a crazy person." "What?" Amy was shocked. She didn't know what she had done wrong. Episode 334, Jealousy. Amy was dumbstruck. She was so utterly surprised at Tyler's accusation that she didn't know how to react. She stared at him with a confused expression. "What did you say?" she asked again. Her hands were still on his cheeks. "Don't make me repeat myself. Stop acting like a crazy person. You're embarrassing your friend and her son," Tyler said, flicking her forehead. Amy looked at him intently, but when she saw that serious look in his eyes, she started laughing. Amy chuckled like she was extremely amused, causing Tyler's forehead to crease. She let go of Tyler's cheeks, and she began to caress the skin she had just pinched as she continued laughing. "My dear fiancé, you can't be serious," she said. "What did you think I was doing just now?" she continued. But Tyler still didn't look impressed. "Did you think I was actually flirting with Haley?" She laughed again. "Obviously," Tyler replied. "You really think I was being serious?" she asked. Tyler couldn't even speak anymore. He was having a bit of a challenging time calming himself down, and he didn't know why. He felt like he was going to actually get quite angry if Amy continued. "Is this really you?" she asked again. This time, her tone was more mischievous. Unlike her usual style, she didn't touch or look at him seductively. She just asked a normal question and then continued laughing to herself. This time, it was Tyler's turn to pinch Amy's cheeks. "Didn't you promise you were going to stop flirting?" he asked in a firm tone, reminding her about the deal they had made. Amy's wide smile abruptly weakened. "I'm not flirting, okay? How could you call what I did flirting?" Amy began to panic. She had no intention of breaking her promise. "Do you think I'm blind and deaf, my dear? If what you did wasn't flirting, then what would you call it?" Tyler asked, moving his face closer to hers.
That wasn't flirting, she said with a stutter. I was just trying to show support for my friend. Why do you have to be so strict? Does hugging my best friend now count as flirting? Her words caused Tyler to be taken aback and fall speechless. When Tyler didn't say anything, Amy was about to continue talking when suddenly an idea popped into her head. Her lips curved as she narrowed her eyes. What's this, Mr. Clark? Are you feeling jealous that I confessed my love and proposed to Haley? She asked with a taunting voice. Is my dear fiancé actually jealous? I mean, seriously? She continued asking. Her eyes began to twinkle again as her lips curved into a wide smile. Tyler didn't say anything. Say something. Tell me. You are jealous, aren't you? Amy taunted. Silence. Come on, baby, don't be shy and admit it. She wasn't going to give up. You're actually jealous of Amy was enjoying herself. But she couldn't finish her sentence because all of a sudden, Tyler lifted her up and threw her over his shoulder in one swoop. She was shocked to her core. Hey, what are you doing? Put me down, Amy protested, but Tyler was deaf to her pleas and continued quickly walking away from the shooting range. Haley and Sean had both already left. They were now heading to the lab to find Michelle. By the time Tyler reached the car, he hastily opened the door and carefully put Amy down on the seat. He followed her in and slammed the door closed. She struggled to sit up and was about to start nagging him when he suddenly pinned her down. He held her hands above her head as he looked at her intensely. Amy looked up at him with a questioning gaze. Since she wasn't allowed to flirt, she just shut her mouth and didn't move at all to avoid breaking her promise. She wondered if he was just testing her. A few seconds passed, and he still hadn't said a word. He simply stared at her with that unfathomable gaze of his that Amy could never read. She couldn't even tell what he was feeling at that moment. Is he angry? She wondered. What does his look even mean? Amy was forced to surrender to his serious, inexplicable gaze. I was just kidding, okay? There's no way my mighty Tyler would get jealous of my friend and me, right? She asked. This kind of situation was torture for her. There was no way she could suppress her true nature with this handsome man on top of her. She had to do something before she lost all self-control. After all, she was just teasing him. She genuinely believed that this man would never get jealous when it came to her. Years ago, Amy had tried asking him to be her partner at an event, but he had declined. She had gotten upset, so she had decided to go with a good-looking celebrity out of frustration. The night of the ball, Amy had been holding on to her partner's arm when she had seen Tyler in the hotel's lobby. He had been with some other men and looked like he was there for business. Amy had immediately understood that Tyler had declined her invitation because he had important matters to attend to. However, the absence of any reaction from Tyler upon seeing her with another man had been a huge blow to her. Tyler had simply glanced at her, and he hadn't even said a word before leaving. Since then, even though she knew he really cared for her and would always be there for her when she needed help, she understood that he would always do his best to live up to the promise he had made to her. He would always allow her to live her life freely. She believed that he was overprotective toward her because he felt responsible, and nothing more. Hey, I already said I was just kidding. Are you really trying to torture me? She squirmed under his strong grasp. Seeing a beauty on top of me like this is my weakness, you know?
she pleaded. His expression somehow changed a bit.
You really think I'm not jealous? He asked, and Amy blinked again. She wasn't used to talking to him like this. She was always teasing him and throwing him off his rhythm every time he turned so serious. This kind of situation somehow felt awkward to her. I really don't think you are, she replied. You don't even get jealous when I'm with another man. So how could you get jealous because of a woman? She had already accepted this fact a long time ago. But somehow hearing herself say the words was like a sharp blow to her heart. What he said next surprised her. Who told you that? Who told you that I'm not jealous? Episode 335, Expectations. Who told you that I'm not jealous? Tyler repeated. Amy was dumbstruck after hearing those words leave his mouth. She blinked more than 3 times before she could utter a word. What did you say? She stammered. She was trying to confirm that what she had just heard wasn't in her imagination. She stared at him with wide eyes, and Tyler's gaze was still deep and unfathomable. But this time, the way he looked at her was much more intense than before. His eyes were like a clear, blue lake, enchantingly calm and clear, yet bottomless. She just couldn't understand exactly what those eyes were telling her. Her heart began to race when he didn't reply. She could swear she heard those words, but somehow she found it quite unbelievable. Is he serious? She wondered. Is he testing me? Unable to figure out what was going on, Amy decided not to get her hopes up. She had always been a pessimist. She was the type of person who never expected much from someone else. This way, she would never be disappointed. Since she had been a little girl, her life had been a series of one betrayal after another. Even her very own family had abandoned her, causing her to lose trust in almost everyone. She had learned that in order for someone like her to avoid getting hurt again, she would have to expect the worst from everyone, or expect nothing at all. Truth be told, when Amy had met Haley in high school, she had expected her to be just like everyone else. She had expected her to pretend to be a friend at the beginning, and then gradually become a backstabber or a stranger when she hadn't needed her anymore. She had prepared herself for the worst, so that when it happened, she wouldn't be caught off guard. She would know that she had been right all along. However, when Haley had proven to be a good friend, and Amy's negative expectations hadn't been fulfilled, she'd been so happy, she had hardly been able to contain herself. Amy believed that optimism would lead to nothing but heartache. Too much expectation would only lead to pain. She had learned her lesson in the past and wouldn't willingly fall down into the same pit again. Are you trying to test me, Mr. Clark? Are you trying to provoke me since I'm not allowed to flirt anymore? She said, trying to make her voice calm and not mischievous. Tyler narrowed his eyes. You think I'm kidding, he finally replied, and Amy immediately answered. Well, I don't want to get my hopes up, she explained. Because you're afraid your expectations will be wrong? He asked. That's correct, so there's no point in denying it, she admitted. I'd rather expect a storm so I can prepare myself for it. It's better than expecting sunshine and being caught in the rain. If you're prepared for the worst and get surprised by something better, wouldn't you be overjoyed? Her words were somewhat heavy, and he clearly noticed the change in her tone. He finally began to understand why she acted the way she did all the time. But
Thinking the worst of someone is the same as saying you'll never trust that person at all, he replied.
Maybe you're right. But what's wrong with playing it safe?
What's wrong with being careful? Must I be foolish forever and let myself get hurt time and time again? She asked. So you won't believe me if I tell you that I'm jealous, he responded. You can't blame me. How could a heartless fiancé like you be jealous of a playful confession someone makes to their best friend? She challenged Tyler. Heartless, he stuttered. For some reason, hearing her call him heartless made him feel uneasy. He was used to being called heartless and ruthless by his enemies, but when the words came from Amy's mouth, he felt like he was being stabbed in the heart. His grip on her hands loosened like he was suddenly weakened.
You don't know, do you? She continued. Listen to me, Mr. Handsome Man. We've been engaged for more than 5 years now, but you haven't even taken me out on a date. You come to give me presents on my birthdays, and then you leave right away after talking to my grandpa for a few minutes. You don't even bother to ask me how I'm doing. You only come and see me when your brother sends you to get me. You've never accepted an invitation from me. We've never had a serious talk, and you've never opened up to me about anything. She started to look profoundly serious. I will never forget that you are always there to save me whenever I'm in grave danger, and I know I can never repay you for that, but... Before she could finish, she pulled her hands away from Tyler's loosened grip. She grabbed him by the collar and held him at a distance as she stared at him fiercely. But, my dear, you were supposed to be my fiancé, not a superhero who would only appear when I'm in danger. I haven't forgotten that you were never bound by this thing called love. But why aren't you saying anything? Are you planning to be like this for another 5 years? Do you think that we can go on like this forever? Her eyes narrowed as she questioned him. She had always expected him to break their engagement one day. She had never expected that their relationship would last. For 5 years, she had tried chasing him, while making it look like she was doing it just for fun. She would harass and flirt with him mischievously every time she had the chance, trying to get a reaction. But Amy, the so-called queen of seduction, who had published best-selling romance novels, had actually failed to successfully invite her own fiancé out for a date. Thinking about their situation, Amy didn't even know why they were still engaged. How long can we go on like this? She wondered. For the first time in her life, she felt like her heart was heavier than ever. She knew with certainty that she didn't want them to stay like this. After a moment of silence, she continued speaking without letting go of Tyler's collar. If this is what you think, I'm sorry. Even if you're the most beautiful man in the world to me, what I need is definitely not a superhero, she said, her eyes glistening with an emotion Tyler had never seen in her before. As quickly as it came, it was gone. She shrugged, and the look in her eyes went back to normal. So yes, to me, you're definitely my heartless superhero. No matter how much I think about it, there's no way that you, of all people, would ever really get jealous over anything I do. She let go of his collar. Why would anything be different now when you haven't cared about me for all these years? To tell you the truth, Tyler Clark, she paused before she uttered her last 3 words. I hate you. Episode 336, A Timely Phone Call. She hates me. She hates me, Tyler thought.
Amy's outburst had stunned him and left him speechless. But her last words shut him down. He felt a sensation that he had never experienced before, and it immobilized him. He remained silent for several minutes, and his eyes darkened. Amy averted her gaze and started to feel nervous. He had frozen completely. She was used to him retorting or flicking her head, so his complete shutdown shocked her. It seemed like the calm before the storm. She felt a little better after saying the words that she had always wanted to say to him, but she hadn't meant for them to come out like that. She hadn't planned her outburst, especially since she wasn't allowed to touch him, but she had been prepared for him to be stubborn. She was bound by their deal, though, so she couldn't execute the plan she had come up with. She didn't want to break her promise, and she hated losing. So she had decided to play it safe and postpone the moment of truth. She had told him that she hated him. It would distract him from the real issue. She hadn't planned to say those exact words, but her mischievous self took over and lied to him. She sighed. It's too late now, I suppose, she thought. She wanted him to speak, to say anything at all, but she knew he wouldn't be easily provoked. She also wanted him to think about what she had said. She wanted to cause trouble and make him think about her and feel anxious for just a little bit longer. He had withstood all her advances for almost 6 years, so it seemed fair. Ahem. She cleared her throat loudly. He looked deflated, and she wanted to know what he was thinking. When he still didn't move, she started to pinch his cheeks, but stopped herself. She had to be careful in case he was trying to provoke her. Just as she was about to speak, his spirit returned, and a dangerous look filled his eyes. He stared at her intently. You hate me, he asked in a cold voice filled with disbelief. Why is he so angry? Did he believe that? Did he believe me? How could I hate such a beautiful man? She thought. She couldn't hate him even if she tried. His reaction puzzled her, but she felt victorious, knowing that her words had affected him. His anger meant that he cared what she thought of him. Do you really think that I hate you? She asked. She tried to act serious, but she couldn't hide her grin. When he saw her annoying, mischievous grin and heard her taunting words, his dangerous aura faded and was replaced by confusion. He was speechless, and she wanted to laugh. She was just about to tease him when he spoke. No, he said. She blinked and said, Huh? I don't think that you really hate me, he said. His expression was blank, but there was still a hint of anger in his eyes. Why not? She asked. Because I'm an optimist, he replied. Amy was shocked. What kind of reason is that? She wondered. She saw how serious he was, and her eyes narrowed. Her grin faded, and she thought about what to say next. What if I meant it? She asked. After a moment of deafening silence, his cold aura flared up again. Amy congratulated herself on getting a reaction out of him. Before she could say anything, her cell phone vibrated. She was grateful for the chance to end her conversation with Tyler. She had wanted to get under his skin and make him think about her, which she had. She hoped that he would open up to her on his own, and not because he was forced to. She looked at her phone. It's our spy, she said. She went into mission mode, completely ignoring Tyler, who was still on top of her, looking annoyed. Hello? What is it?
We just left.
What? She went into his office again? She asked, raising her eyebrows. The caller replied,
Miss Amy, I found out that it's always Lena who takes the reports in. She volunteers. The others give theirs to her. And yes, she just went into the office again. She's carrying a lot of reports, so I think she'll be in there for a while.
Amy's eyes narrowed, and she took several deep breaths. She looked at Tyler and said, There's an emergency. I need to talk to Haley right away. With that, she left, leaving Tyler and his cold aura in the car. His fists were clenched, and he looked like he wanted to kill someone. Episode 337, The Elevator. A luxury car was parked in front of the Clark International Corporation. One of its doors opened, and a beautiful woman, wearing a simple yet elegant white dress, stepped out. Her long black hair cascaded down her back, and her fair skin glowed in the sunlight. Her presence made the environment around her more beautiful. Amy had told her to get Brad and bring him home. She hadn't understood Amy's insistence, but she had agreed to do it since she had wanted to visit his company anyway. Okay, Haley, Amy said as she also stepped out of the car. It sounds like Brad's in trouble. He's negotiating with the partner, and there's some sort of problem. He's probably exhausted and could use your support. Don't just sit there, though. Make him feel better. You know what I mean. Haley nodded with determination, and Amy smiled to herself. That's right. Go deal with that other woman. She can't compete with you, she thought. She got back in the car. She wanted to accompany Haley and watch the situation unfold, but she knew that she couldn't. Only Tyler could enter Brad's office without an appointment. Give Sean to me, she said. Tyler, who was quietly looking out the window with Sean sleeping in his arms, slowly turned to her and handed the boy over. He reached for the car door and was about to step out when she spoke again. Remember what I told you, she said, smiling. He glanced at Sean and then at her, moving his face closer to hers. Her eyes widened. His gaze froze her, rendering her powerless. She couldn't look away. He moved even closer, and she thought that he was going to kiss her. She was surprised. Their kisses had never started like that before. They had simply kissed each other quickly with no warning. Her heart raced, and she held her breath. But when his lips were an inch away from hers, he stopped. You told me that you hated me, but you seem fine with me kissing you, he said calmly. She blushed. Your lips are so beautiful that I couldn't possibly hate them, she said. His eyes narrowed and she remembered their deal. I'm not flirting, she said. I was just answering your question and... She didn't get a chance to finish her sentence. Tyler flicked her forehead and stepped out of the car. She bit her lip. What was all that about? Why the hell was I so nervous? I'm not a teenager. Mr. Beauty is messing with me again, she thought. The elevator doors closed behind Tyler and the beautiful woman accompanying him, and everyone started talking. They had rarely seen anyone other than him or the elder Clarks using the elevator, reserved exclusively for President Clark and his guests. Did you see that? Did you see the woman who got into the elevator? Oh, yeah. Who is she? Did you see her face? I didn't even notice her coming into the building. I just saw her get into the elevator. I was scared to look since Mr. Clark was with her. How about you? Did you see her face?
No, I just saw her from behind. She had a great body. Careful. Watch what you say about her. You don't know who she is. She could be really important. Why do you think so? Seriously? What other woman besides Mrs. Clark has ever used that elevator? Good point. And Mr. Clark was escorting her. She must be a special lady. Episode 338, A Sniper. Lena, Brad's administrative assistant, was in his office giving him a report. Brad looked blankly at the documents in his hands and occasionally muttered, but was otherwise unresponsive. She had been there for an hour, and he hadn't even invited her to take a seat. He had a rule that his administrative assistants stand while delivering their reports. They were all supposed to come in individually, but lately, Lena had been spending more time with him than anyone else, stirring up a lot of gossip. Everyone knew that she had family connections to the Clarks, and she was the only woman that President Clark had hired in 5 years. Everyone expected her to become Mrs. Clark and treated her accordingly. Brad hadn't heard the gossip, but Tyler had. He had dismissed it, thinking it ridiculous and unworthy of Brad's attention. He hadn't confronted Lena since he had considered her smart enough not to get any ideas. Brad's indifference toward her should have told her that nothing would happen between them, and that she was no different from any other employee. But Tyler didn't know that she had an ulterior motive that had developed over time. She enjoyed the special treatment that she received. The gossip that she constantly heard had put ideas into her head, and she had started to believe it. Brad had hired her based on her skills, and her goal at the beginning had been to gain experience before taking over her family's company. But somewhere along the way, she had changed. Here's the project proposal, she said, circling around the desk to place another document in front of him. She moved closer to Brad and bent over him to point to something in the proposal. She leaned over so that the top of her chest was exposed. I think there's a problem with this part, she said softly, unaware that 2 people had just come in. Tyler, who had opened the door quietly as instructed by Amy, was tempted to slam it shut to get Brad's attention. He was surprised to see how close Lena was, and although Brad was oblivious, he remembered Amy's warning that Lena was a threat. He quickly understood why Amy had been suspicious of her. Her intentions were obvious. Unfortunately for her, Brad was completely oblivious to such a blatant attempt at seduction. Haley was the only woman for him, and nobody else would ever compare. Tyler's cold aura finally got Lena's attention. She looked up and unwittingly locked eyes with Haley. Tyler wanted to glare at her to warn her off, but first he glanced at Haley to see her reaction. When he saw how calm she was, he held his breath. She looked as calm and composed as a sniper focusing on the target. He imagined her checking the wind's direction and speed, the air density, the distance from the target, and any other variable that might affect the path of her bullet toward Lena. For Tyler, that moment felt like the calm before the storm. He looked at Lena and saw that she seemed to have frozen in place, as though she had been immobilized. Haley was looking at her blankly, but Tyler felt her intense energy. He said, breaking the silence. Brad looked up. When he saw Haley standing by the door, he stood up and walked over to her, not realizing that he had shoved Lena aside. His face brightened as though he had stepped out into the sunshine. Before he could ask why she was there, she spoke. Darling, I've come to bring you home, she said sweetly. Brad was dumbstruck. She called me her darling, he thought. Episode 339, Don't Mind Me. Haley's comment astounded Brad. He looked as delighted as a puppy whose owner had come home after being out all day.
Tyler watched them both, but remained motionless. His instructions had been to observe them, and then report back to the mastermind waiting in the car. Brad was like an open book for Tyler, so he focused his attention on Haley. He was curious about how she would react, and he remembered what had happened several years earlier. She had gotten jealous and ran away to hide and sulk at Amy's place. She had been so emotional that she had gotten drunk. What about now? Will she sulk again? Will she cry? Will she tell Brad that she's jealous? Will she confront Lena and slap her? Am I about to witness a fight? He wondered. He was shocked when she remained calm and level-headed. He didn't even sense any animosity in her. There were no negative emotions at all. Her reaction was completely different than Amy's. She was calm and dignified, but also terrifying and intimidating. But you can finish whatever you're working on. I'll wait for you, she said as she slipped her hand through Brad's arm. As she led him back to his desk, he regained his senses. He was still shocked, but he also looked overjoyed. His happiness overpowered his curiosity and confusion. He said,
Are you sure you're okay waiting? I can bring these home if...
It's okay, she said. You can finish them here so that you can just relax when we get home. He agreed enthusiastically.
Okay, I'll be fast.
The prospect of going home with Haley helped him focus on the work that he had been so bored with just a few minutes earlier. She sat him down and let go of his arm. I'll just have a look around, she said. He nodded and motioned to Lena, who returned to her spot in front of his desk to continue her report. Haley didn't acknowledge her or ask who she was. Their eyes had met for just a few seconds, and after that, Haley hadn't looked at her again. She enjoyed looking around Brad's office, which looked like a presidential suite, and forgot that Lena was there. Lena continued her report. She seemed composed, and she delivered it professionally. But Tyler noticed that she seemed to be dragging it out unnecessarily, as though she wanted to show everyone how much she knew. She seemed to be taking advantage of Brad's good mood, and was clearly trying to show off, even though she knew that Brad expected people to get straight to the point. Tyler hadn't particularly disliked her before, but her behavior was starting to annoy him. She had heard how Brad and Haley had spoken to each other, and she had seen how happy he had become. Tyler had expected her to figure out what was going on, but instead, she had persisted. What an idiot, he thought. He leaned against the door and kept observing. He soon noticed that Haley was listening intently to every word Lena was saying, even though she looked like she was just looking around. After a few minutes, Haley turned to Brad. She saw how focused he was on the document in front of him and quietly walked over to him, ignoring Lena's widening eyes. Does your back hurt? Let me give you a massage while she continues with her report, she said. Brad was stunned, and he turned to her. She had become very stealthy over the years, so he hadn't heard her approaching him. Lena paused, and Haley finally looked up at her. Haley's observation skills were finely tuned, and just one glance told her what Lena was feeling. This won't interrupt you, will it? She asked without looking away from Lena.
Of course not,
Brad said with a smile. He wasn't about to refuse her offer. Haley's lips curved up a little, which surprised Tyler so much that he stood up straight and stared at her. Did she just smile? He wondered. Lena's expression grew uglier, and her calm and composed facade began to crack. The faint smile on Haley's face was like a bullet piercing her heart. Tyler finally figured out what Haley was doing. She wasn't yelling at or fighting with Lena. Instead, she was attacking silently, without any direct engagement. She was toying around with her first, before delivering that fatal blow. He wanted to laugh out loud and give her a round of applause. He looked at Lena with pity as Haley put her hands on Brad's shoulders. Before she started massaging him, she looked up and finally addressed Lena. She said, "Keep going. Don't mind me." Episode 340, The Upstart. Lena was furious and had to resist the urge to crumple the papers she was holding. She was on the verge of bursting. This little upstart, who does she think she is? Even Mrs. Clark wouldn't dare to interrupt us. She's digging her own grave, she thought. When the president had turned toward the woman, Lena had smirked evilly. She knew how President Clark dealt with people who interrupted him. "You don't know what's in store for you," she had thought as she sneered. To her surprise, though, President Clark had accepted the offer of a massage without hesitating. His answer had stunned her. What had happened to her cold and ruthless boss? Had that woman drugged him? If she hadn't seen their exchange with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed it. Her eyes had begun to blaze, and the scorn in them had started to crack her seemingly perfect facade. Then this woman had looked at her and smiled faintly, and she had felt like a volcano that was about to erupt. The look in her eyes had suggested that Lena was irrelevant and not even worthy of being considered a rival. She had dared to tell Lena to keep going. By that point, Lena couldn't suppress her rage any longer. Her eyes showed malice. She had always been favored and respected by everyone, but the woman who had snuck into the president's office had stolen his attention. She had never been interrupted like that before, and she couldn't take it. For the first time ever, she was so angry that she lost her composure. She looked at her boss and saw him smiling, and she was flabbergasted. She had never seen him smile before, not even when they were teenagers. Yet there he was, smiling just because someone had offered to give him a massage. "Keep going, Lena," he said in his normal, icy tone. As usual, he didn't look at her when he spoke to her. He kept his gaze on his laptop as the woman massaged him. Yes, Lena struggled to regain her composure. What happened next didn't help. "Does this feel good? Tell me if there's too much pressure, okay?" the woman asked. It feels great," President Clark said in a blissful voice, obviously enjoying the massage. "Tell me if you want it a little harder." Haley had deliberately used such words. The president turned toward her. "It's fine. I don't want your hands to get sore," he said as he lovingly touched the hands on his shoulders. "Don't worry about me. I'm not that fragile anymore," she replied. "You're definitely not," he said as his eyes returned to his laptop. Lena was cracking all over again. She forgot what she had planned to say and had to stop and repeat herself several times. She started to sound like a broken record. Brad noticed that his normally competent and straightforward assistant had changed after Haley's arrival. Even though he wasn't paying very much attention to her, the change was obvious. But since Haley was with him, he was in such a good mood that he just ignored her wordy report until she started pausing and repeating herself. He looked up and glared at her coldly. She felt the familiar shiver down her spine that told her that her boss wasn't satisfied. "What's your problem? Are you just practicing?" he asked. Lena felt like she had been slapped in the face. "You've been here for over an hour. Get someone else to finish for you," he said. He wasn't angry, which was out of character for him. He was normally a perfectionist, and he was ruthless enough to fire anyone who gave a report as sloppy as Lena's. He was unusually considerate with her. I'm sorry. Please excuse me for... Haley cut her off. Darling, why don't you let her finish? She's almost done anyway.